Yeah, let me start. First of all, hey, super that you all joined. I think this is close to a new record. We are over 20 people, so I'm super happy about that. Maybe it's just because of the two bold ones. So that's maybe the brings people into like these live shows. But now I'm happy to have Roman here from adaptTo. Happy to also have now I have to check who it was. Alina, I asked. It was Tomasz. It was Tat. It was Gregor. It was Ina. Who else? And you all joined, and now we have much more people to discuss because it was really a great conference. Maybe Lars is not here at the moment, but I think you do a screen recording, Tat. So let's see. It will work at the end. What we will do today, we will go through a few points, like some numbers from adaptTo. I was doing some interviews and talk with people, so I have some voices, and then we have around 4 questions we already sent to some of you, and we will go to this and discuss a little bit about edge delivery in certain, some difficult questions. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it super? Of course it is good, but let's discuss. But now I will give the word in the beginning to Roman. Maybe you can go through a few numbers and talk about adaptTo itself before we go into the discussion. And now let me share, or let me jump to the next slide. I hope it works. You still see it?
Yeah, it's all right. All right. And thanks, Dominik, for having adaptTo here at Discord. Yeah, especially for the ones who are watching the recording and don't know about what adaptTo is. So some short explanation to start. adaptTo is Europe's oldest AEM developer conference, which is still around since 13 years, every year in fall in Berlin, and hosted by the agency diva-e. Yeah, so what was it about in 2024? We had like 3 full days packed with 28 talks, and we had like 3 clusters of talks. We had like the new stuff, like edge delivery services, universal editor, dark alley, stuff like that. Then we had also a bit the, let's say, the older stuff, like the Sling, the Jackrabbit, the Oak, like all around the open source stack. And for sure, AEM is a cloud service. And we had like a third cluster of talks, which were like very around problem solving, these how-to talks, how I call them. And stuff like, for example, Georg's talk, how to copy 40 terabytes on a nightly base, or like the talk about how to fetch open telemetry data from AEM as a cloud service. Talks like that, which personally a bit my favorite, because you learn so much stuff people can use in their projects and for their customers and clients. Yeah, besides talks, we also had like a panel discussion all around edge delivery services. We had lightning talks. We had a big meet the expert session, and more or less what's it all about? It's like a big reunion every year. It's like to network and meet old and new friends. Yeah. And with that, handing back to Dominik.
Super, thank you. And maybe what I can add to this, I mean, I was at really a lot of conferences around the world, and I think it was the first and only conference where people are really stayed until the end, to the last minute. I never saw that before, because normally people use conferences to spend the last day having party, having a headache, leaving soon to the beach or whatever. Okay, in Berlin is no beach, but there's things to do. That I was impressed. It was really super. So I was talking to a lot of people, and these are really just voices heard, and this was also a little bit some base for my questions later on. It was all about edge delivery, because I'm coming from this side. So what we heard, it's all an early stage. So edge delivery services adoption is still difficult. There are not a lot of projects around, and also partners are not so confident about promoting it. It was not so easy, or most of customers are still on-prem or going to AMS. So that's why we are maybe looking at the possibilities, but we are not so into it. And of course, adaptTo, as also Roman said, I mean, it's an open source conference. There are edge delivery is maybe not the perfect fit until now, but maybe about next year it will be, definitely. And it also feels like Java skills are moving a little bit in the background. So this is what I heard a little bit, and I have more slides. And maybe we can just jump into like a little bit the first topic we have. I was talking to people about editor, about universal editor and Crosswalk, and I have here already four, you can say statements that on one side it's super, it simplifies because for existing customers you can use best of both worlds. For others, it's a little bit more complex. Maybe it's Tomasz. I think we have also a big discussion about a lot of different topics. And what I heard, you did also complex projects using best of both worlds.
Yeah, so I think in VML right now there are quite a few things happening. I don't think any of them went to production, but I have a very good example from yesterday. We've like blown away the customer with a universal editor and with just content fragments. They've been a traditional AEM customer. They have a lot of different things that happen on the platform, and they're looking for a new world and to refresh everything and be quicker, etc. And they were blown away by the demo, right? That we've prepared for them. That was on Universal Editor and content fragments. For me, it allows you to give an AEM project, which can be enterprise grade, to front-end people fully, really, right? Because it was the whole demo was prepared by front-end people. They did all of the setup of content fragment models with the APIs. So they just had a front-end project to set up everything, to set up the models. There were guides for Universal Editor to set everything up, so it was really smooth for them. And it was people who were first time seeing it in their lives. They saw it a few days before. I've shown it to them a few days before, and they prepared a very good demo in a few days, together with another bunch of guys that wanted to build everything on Next.js and just make everything serverless, etc. So that's what the demo was all about, right? It was serverless website with Universal Editor, with a content still in AEM, which doesn't violate corporate policies, which was a killer for them, right? They've chosen AEM. They have a lot of red tape around using AEM and centralizing content. So it was an easy sell. They basically just bought into the whole idea. And the guys who are supposed to build the front end are super happy because there's so much to build in there, and trying to build it more traditional way would take ages. We all know how long. Sorry, Adobe guys. It takes sometimes ages to build stuff on AEM, just because of how things work, right? And because of the deployment types, etc. And here they can utilize power of things like Next.js and at the same time have a corporate enterprise grade content management system, right? So it just marries the best of both. At the same time, for me, edge delivery services as a thing is also a complete refresher. I've launched websites on it already. It's just so easy. I mean, for me, it's Adobe stepping up to the game of building websites quickly, right? I love it.
Okay.
It's finally something you just give to people and they can just build a website with it without contacting account manager. To begin with, right? Because if you think about it, right, this is so prohibitive to some people, right? You try to get your hands dirty with AEM, and it tells you contact your account manager, right, to try it.
Come on, we have the nicest account managers. It can't be a burden to talk to these nice people.
Yeah, now we have both, Lars. Now we have both. We have the account managers and an easy to handle software. So that's cool.
Yeah,
that's super. Yeah. Do we have any other voices with a lot of experience about Universal Editor or Crosswalk? I don't know. I see Marcus is here, and he wants to hear definitely from partners more about what Crosswalk is all about and how people or customers like it. I don't know. Gregor, maybe you had already experience. Maybe you can share.
No experience, but like little experience, but not production project experience, right? But for me, it's a bit of a funny sentence. I think it's more like it's performance. Like edge delivery service is efficient and performant on the publishing tier, and the universal editor doesn't change anything there. I think it's more this polarizing discussion, and there's pros and cons, obviously, between having a guided AEM WYSIWYG editing experience versus using document-based authoring, which is just totally different, with all the pros and cons. So
Yeah.
I'm yet to see I see all pros and cons. I'm very curious to see how it will lay out in the market, like how customers will decide and so on. So I think it's actually very it's a very interesting time to follow it. And obviously we foster the discussion with the customers. We put just on the plate for our customers whatever is there, what is provided by Adobe, and we explain it to them, but we let them choose. And I'm very curious about what they're gonna choose the next year.
Yeah. Super. No, great to hear that.
I would like to just add something to it. I think the choice is critical, right? I don't think choice is bad, right? I think that's what some people call burden, right? There are too many options to choose, right? It's no longer just an AEM. You have tools, and I think finally not everything is a hammer and not everything is a nail, right? You can choose the right tool to do the right job, depending on the situation, and I think that's great.
But also, you could have more than one thing even on the same site, which is I think the thing that's kind of glorious now is that you don't even have to get all hot and bothered about which one is better, because the same UI code for the same website could be run. Like if you have one section of the site that you're really bent around trying to make sure that where governance is a concern, managed taxonomy is a concern, you don't want people putting the wrong things in the wrong places, you can cinch that down a little bit with that section of the site. And you can say, good, with this other one, content velocity is king, and we want people to roll this out as fast as they possibly can. There's nothing that's going to be faster than doc-based for that sort of thing.
Yeah, and
I think
we are doing that right now. Actually, we're splitting we're moving the articles to business guys. So there are a lot of articles and legal documents. These guys don't want to use AEM. It's just too far away from what they do day to day, right? They are not content authors. They work in their departments. They want to manage those documents, but for them, moving into CMS every half a year, by the time they need to update this stuff again, they forget what they did last time. If you give them a Word document, they'll just maintain it forever, right? And they are not going to speak to anyone again about it. They will just do it themselves. So it's part of choosing the right tool for the job, right?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the setup. So if you have editors who are doing it regularly and working the whole day, then document-based works quite good because they know exactly what they do. They're used to do it. And if they need to have a bit more guidance, then Universal Editor really is beneficial for them, because with Universal Editor you can guide the editors more. So also if you want to have more content management, then having AEM in the background is also quite nice. It's really, so it depends on the client needs at the end, what fits better for them. I don't think that there is one that you can say this is always better or the other one is always better. It really depends on the situation. And what I personally would really like, which I know it doesn't exist at the moment, if you could choose to use the Universal Editor on document-based, because then you could, even on the same pages, people could decide if they quickly want to adjust things, if they use the Universal Editor, if they do it directly kind of in the source, which is then the Word document. But this is a bit tricky to implement, is at least what I got. But then if you would not need the content management from AEM, you could still benefit from the WYSIWYG. But this doesn't work, is not the case at the moment.
Is this also, I'm just changed the slide because I heard often also from a little bit about complex and maybe large scale. Is it also going to be a discussion about how big the project is? Is it as big the project, maybe it makes more sense to use, as you maybe said, Ina or Tomasz, to use both worlds? Is that a topic? About the size and the complexity of the project?
And governance for me. I think governance is key. When you want and need governance around certain things, it's hard to achieve governance with document-based authoring. The platform we work right now on has a lot of governance and a lot of rules, and they are important because otherwise those marketeers from 100+ countries would just demolish. I mean, that's what they did the last time on the previous AEM platform. They just destroyed the whole website. It was so inconsistent that no one was able to work out anything out of it, and it was almost unfixable, right? So right now, for core parts of it, there are rules, and AEM is great at giving you a way to maintain rules. You have template editor, you have policies, you have so many things you can just implement business rules in for authoring. Whereas documents are just documents, right? They are a bit they are as good as the people who operate them, so to speak, right? So it's your mileage will vary with that, and you don't have templates and policies that you can apply to it.
So
template enforcement is definitely still a huge issue.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So governance is typically associated with the authoring part of AEM. Are there governance issues when it comes to delivery?
There's publish. But publish workflows. There is a desire to have a bit more of. Because right now we're having to design something kind of bespoke for publishing workflows, because that's something that AEM does very well. AEM's workflow engine is definitely, it's arcane and it's been around since before the War of 1812, but it definitely works in terms of being able to set up a workflow. And there's not really something out of the box or even a template for how to do that with edge delivery as yet. That's something we're kind of have to figure out as we go along.
For me, also, I don't know if you saw and noticed my question that I asked, and I had a follow-up after the demo of adobe.com. There was one thing I was trying to work out. How do you migrate content, let's say, or how do you refactor content? It's for me part of governance. How do you modify a structure of 50,000 documents if you need to, because there's the business rules change and we want the articles, for example, to be structured differently. And I had the discussion. I think that the outcome was there's no solution to that in documents today because they're just too complex inside, and there's no way to kind of manipulate the structure of the documents themselves in any automatic fashion. Whereas on AEM, we do that a lot in the project I sit in right now. We often effectively refactor content, let's say, right? We change the structure of it. If we need to, we decompose the templates to different compositions. We do just so many things, and we automatically roll it up. So we don't tell content authors, hey, now go and change those 50,000 articles because we have a different idea for them. We just move it from A to B automatically. Where in
I think it's definitely it's definitely possible, right? If you're on Google, I think it's easier because the APIs are better. If in SharePoint, yes. You can just download the doc, you can adjust it, which might be cumbersome, but it's possible, and you can upload it again, right? And you can do that at bulk, at scale. It's just not something that the product brings.
Universal AEM is possible as well.
The next thing I was going to say is when you change the JCR like that, are you using Groovy scripts or Sling pipes or what?
We use Groovy scripts because we do that a lot. We do it
the
daily.
way I look at that is like the product still doesn't provide something out of the box for content, like content migrations. There is one CMS right now that does provide out of the box content migration support. I forget the name of it though.
I'll remember it. I'll remember it.
But yeah, you absolutely can do that on Adobe, or we do that on Adobe.com. We do a ton of content migration. If you decide that you need to change a block, I think everyone on this call is very familiar with our well-publicized research around document authoring. And we specifically built that around our pain points, because just like we would build, like Sling Pipes was invented by Nicolas Pelletier, who is also from Adobe.com. We had to build that on top of AEM. We also had to build tooling on top of Microsoft Graph. And so that's partially what led to the invention of DA and like the content migration easeability. And to your earlier point, like just throwing regular old front end developers, which is like, if you know the DOM, you can change your block structures across those 80,000 pages for sure.
Yeah, so I
just touched about the topic I wanted to cover, which is document. What that has shown, that has blown me away from the whole conference. That last lightning talk, which was, I see a lot of power in that thing. I see a lot of power in that. I have some really high hopes for that. that.
Lars, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so coming from a world of JCR, right? It's natural to assume that if I cannot do it in JCR, I cannot do it at all. But you'd be surprised how many developers there are in the world who are very, very capable of mass refactoring Word documents, right? And weirdly enough, they might be using programming languages like Visual Basic instead of Groovy, right? Which is a bit removed from our world, and I'm happy to admit that, right? But we shouldn't forget that this world exists, and that it's much bigger than the Java ecosystem that we are familiar with, right? So dismissing dismissing SharePoint as something that doesn't have APIs, as something that is not programmable, is I think beside the point. And even Chris, who's probably SharePoint's harshest critic, is probably not going to raise that point, right? But is going to say, yeah, it's great that they have APIs. It would be great if I could use these APIs a bit more and wouldn't hit their rate limits all the time. Which is
I
Yeah.
think 100%, and maybe this even touches on something that somebody else said, but like I'm still a big fan of SharePoint and Word and the Microsoft Graph APIs. We've done incredible things with those things, and I think, Lars, to your point, it used to be like in our world, and this can feel a little threatening to some, which is like if you have an AEM implementation, what do? You go find AEM engineers, and there's not a whole lot of us out there in the world. When you have a document-based, SharePoint solution, and you need, bulk content migration on top of SharePoint, there's a lot more of those engineers out in the world. We just don't necessarily see them, to Lars's point. And like to our, like in our world, what's kind of interesting is we actually have all three. We have Universal Editor. Well, I guess we have both. So we have Universal Editor and we have document based. And then for certain BUs, so like HR department that wants to use Word, they do, they're authoring maybe 1 or 2 times a year. We try to send them to Word. And then for our full-time authors that need that like capital W CMS, that web CMS that needs like all the sort of AEM features that we love, we send them over to DA, and that's where like the bulk of our content's going now.
I have a question to you, Lars, maybe, or to Chris, because this is recorded, this session, and the question would be, if a partner is approaching you and saying, hey, for a big complex project, I would never go for edge delivery services, what would you answer to the partner to tell him that it is good for big project, as we see on adobe.com and other big projects? You can go with edge delivery. Why?
Well, first of all, I would be thrilled to hear what that project is, right? Because I know a couple of really big websites, right? And adobe.com is not the biggest website that is being tackled with edge delivery services, right? So I love to hear about a challenge. So I would really like to hear what that challenge is, right? And when you put up that slide, edge delivery services is unsuitable alone for large scale projects due to its limitations. I was thinking, what limitations? Give me the list of limitations so that I can work on them, right? So this is I see an engineering challenge here, and the engineering challenge is to a certain degree also an architectural challenge. And the architecture challenge is to a certain degree a mindset challenge, right? And we are seeing that people who are willing to experiment are able to launch incredibly large sites, tackle incredibly complex projects, and we are super happy to work with them and to make it happen. So if you have something where you think, hey, this is too heavy, let us know. We're up for a challenge.
Yeah, super. Jump into Discord and ask the question in the chat, and we will answer, and we will bring you on Edge Delivery Services.
Yep.
Okay, looking at
If
the
I could
time,
just
let's
say
jump
one
to the
thing.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could
Sorry.
just say one thing, because I hear your point completely about the migration, and I fully agree there is a skills missing in the company I work with. Like Visual Basic absolutely is not something we look for people. So I fully get that point. There's one thing for me when I look at the platform I own today. Edge compute is something that I need today. I want to be able to do things at Edge. There are various reasons to do that. And I don't have a capability today just using plain Edge delivery services to bring my own compute to the Edge, right? So I would always have to bring my own CDN in front of it anyway to do compute.
So on that point, right? We've been talking about the choices you have when it comes to authoring, right? With Word and Google and Universal Editor and document authoring. And I have to admit I'm the first one who made fun of our marketing when they come up with the next generation composability buzzword sequence. But there is a point in composability, right? Composability is a valid architectural concept, and it is something that forces us to make a change from the way we are thinking of the solution as everything is coming out of one box and the box is labeled Adobe, to there's an Adobe box, and the Adobe box does the thing that it can do best, which is delivering as a service from the edge. I think there's a name for that, and I can combine this with other boxes, right? And we see how our customers are combining edge delivery services with Cloudflare Workers, which is really a fantastic product, right? How they're combining it with CloudFront and Lambda at Edge, which is, well, it's the product that you most likely already have access to as part of your AWS subscription, right? Or how they do the same thing with Akamai Workers, which is same in the same boat, right? If you're dealing with the large customer, if you're dealing with the large website, there's probably an Akamai contract lying around somewhere. And finally, you can also use Fastly, and Fastly's compute is it's not the most nascent product in the market space, but it's definitely an option. We're using it in production, for instance, for our ROM collection. And I think there's a good chance that we will have more as part of this, right? So even if you prefer everything to come out of an Adobe labeled box, we might have some good news for you.
Okay, thanks. So let's jump to the next question about skills also, because I think it was also a question you answered on the panel, Lars. Do we really need new skills, and can we not use anymore the skills we now gathered for the last 20 years? Is that really an issue? And I know that Alina was on the stage talking also about performance, and I guess there are definitely new skills compared to her first skills, but I'm sure you use all your skills, and you're not just having old skills you don't use anymore. Maybe you can say something, Alina, to this question about skills.
Yes. So this is true. There has been a bit of a shift in terms of the skill set, but I believe this is not something uncommon. I think even when, let's say, it was the move from AEM 6.5 to AEM as a cloud service, there were also new skills that had to be acquired. For example, understanding Cloud Manager, pipelines, and other things that were introduced. So it's true. The focus now it's more on front-end development and on JavaScript. But I believe if there is a developer with high backend experience that knows Sling, knows OSGI, knows JCR, I think actually learning how to develop frontend is fairly easy. And yes, my team also started, we were before AEM developers, we started doing VIP projects. And for us, we discovered that the learning curve was actually quite fast. And also, if we refer a bit to the talk that we did, we could work closer to the customers, and we identified even opportunities beyond going live to improve the performances of the site. We were looking at the SEO. So yes, I think these are things that maybe we weren't looking closely before, but I think now we're looking closely both for AEM Edge delivery services and AEM as a cloud service. And overall, I believe they are advantages because the cycles in which you would receive new features is much faster. I think now instead of getting waiting for the monthly release cycles and getting a very highly customizable feature, you can get something that is tailored just for you, much faster, and also that front-end technologies are anyways useful and yes.
Yeah.
No, I like, and my question would also because Lars, you also answered the question: is there a bigger jump if you? I mean, I don't have this experience from the past AEM, and I'm not a developer, but I mean, there was on-premise the first, even there was CQ, then on-premise, then cloud service, and AMS, and all this stuff. I think there was always a
yes, there
felt
was
that
always
this is
a
a
jump.
big step. Yeah, is
Yes,
this
yes.
bigger jump, or is it just more fancy, or is it? I don't know. Maybe how can you?
To be fair, I felt it, but me as a, let's say, AEM developer, I felt it was a bigger jump from 6.5 to 6.6 AEM as a cloud service. But that was just, let's say, my experience. For this one, I think, yes, after talking to everybody that developed a customer project, everybody said that the learning pace is quite fast, and also that in a way change is normal, and is also normal to be in the beginning reluctant to it. But I think once you try and you see, yeah, it's actually faster than maybe it looks in the beginning.
Yeah. And
for me, it's really completely different. So I see that for me, these change. So it's easy. It's easy to learn. But the change between AEM and edge delivery services is really huge. So comparing to a change from CQ4 to 5, this was much smaller than from AEM to edge delivery services for me, from my point of view as an AEM backend or someone with AEM backend experience. Because you're changing from Java to JavaScript and CSS at the end. So if you worked for front-end topics in AEM before, then maybe it's a smaller change. And it's easy to learn and fast to learn, but the change is still big from my view.
yeah.
Any other voices, Lars?
Well, go ahead, Lars, if you have something.
Yeah. So my point is, I refuse to let learning something new be phrased and be framed as a bad thing as an engineer, right? That's been my entire career. I started development with PHP 3, and if you would ask me, hey Lars, do you wish you could build edge delivery sites in PHP 3? I would say no way. I would ever want to do this. Outside maybe a technical challenge as part of a Halloween episode, right? I think running the PHP runtime in WASM in the browser could be a fun exercise. And I know that we have people here on the call who've been in the industry much longer than I have been, right? So this is a reality as an engineer, and for I see a couple here of you who are running your businesses around AEM and around tech talent, right? And I would say just as it's the individual engineer's responsibility to learn and to keep up with new things, it's your responsibility to hire, foster new talent, and grow the overall ecosystem, right? And we are doing our part in this by sticking to technologies that are standard, that are essentially part of the web platform, and I'm hoping that everyone else is also seeing this as the same fun challenge that I'm seeing it as.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted, so you said a word a little while ago, Lars, which is that much teased at next generation composability platform label.
Yeah.
Composability, I think, is something that you could never really accuse AEM of being particularly composable. There was like kind of a way that you were supposed to go about integrating things, which was basically the way for like the last 15 years, which is if you've got a backend integration, this is how you do it. You're going to plug it into this big, beefy, monolithic application server. And that was the way, I mean, and if you think about how long we've been doing that, that's half the lifetime of the entire public internet that we've been doing it exactly the same way. And so when David Nuschler first was talking to me about edge delivery, well, I mean, I was terrified of a completely different idea of how to plug things together. And yes, it's not just a different change in like skill sets of like, yes, I do have an engineer who's working for me who is just out of college. He doesn't know a lot of AEM, but he's great with Python and JS, and he's my main migration guy who's doing all my migration scripts for edge delivery. He's really great. So yes, fine. So there's skill sets like that, but what about architect skill sets? Because there's all the things that you previously got. Well, here's how I'm going to secure it from the F5 and firewalls and stuff, and now I'm going to do it a completely different way. So it's just it requires an ability to completely rethink the right way to solve some of these technical problems.
I think one way of thinking about this is that AEM traditionally was very strong in terms of modularity, right? With OSGI basically being a component framework around modularity and having the ability to have replaceable components, and with edge delivery services, we are moving this up conceptually, right, into the architectural layer. And so what used to be modularity is now composability, which obviously means that you are dealing with a lot more heterogeneous components than you used to in a world where you just had to wrangle 1,000 different OSGI bundles. Right now you have to deal with a bunch of different vendors with a bunch of different architectural properties that need to fit together.
Before I go into last question, or maybe we have 15 minutes left, maybe adaptTo, Roman, do you have other questions to the crowd maybe before? Because I have a question that goes more a little bit in my sales hat from my past, how to sell it, how the messaging, but maybe listening to it, Roman, do you have a question?
It's less a question. It was like the first time that's like the new technology was like so in spotlight on stage. So there were like never before so many edge delivery services presentation, and it really polarized extremely. So like there were people there where you heard it at lunchtime. Oh, we want to go back to the good old times where we had like so many talks about the open source stack and what you could do and so on and so on. And it's a product presentation by Adobe. So they really had like really polarized feedback, also like in our feedback form. And it's and then there was like the one quote I liked. It was like adaptTo. In the future, people will not know what the term actually or the name of the conference will be all about because they don't know the adaptTo function anymore because it's not in edge delivery service. So for us, like it's going to be quite interesting how we proceed with that because it's the new stuff and it will be the future. Full stop. Yeah. But how we bring like this change also like in our conference, It's going to be quite a challenge, and what we're going to do with our title, adaptTo. So my wish to Adobe is you have to put an adaptTo somehow in Edge Delivery Services. Somewhere we need it.
Roman, to be honest, I've been thinking about this. Dirk wrote this great fetch library, which is Franklin Fetch, and nobody knows anymore what Franklin stands for, but it has basically the ability to take data from a spreadsheet and load it progressively, right? And I was thinking sometimes it would be cool if you had the ability to take one of these rows and dare I say adapt them to a particular domain class. So if the wish is to have an adaptTo somewhere in Edge Delivery Services, I think we can make that happen.
That would be excellent.
That sounds great. So, okay, then I'm come to my last question, and maybe just also a little bit from your experience talking to existing or new clients. What is your? I heard a lot that people are a little bit afraid, maybe because they don't know exactly how to explain Edge Delivery Services because they did not really work with it and they did not live it. They don't have the DNA of Edge Delivery Services. I know, Lars, you pitched a lot, you talked to a lot of clients, and I think you have the Edge Delivery DNA. Maybe others in the call, what do you have experience talking to clients, and maybe sometimes you were a little bit of, what shall I say now? So what, any voices about that?
I can give you a little. I mean, I've actually found it a little bit challenging to describe where Edge Delivery. I mean, first of all, it's had 74 names. So that makes it difficult, and frankly, I really like Helix. But anyway, but that being said, explaining where it fits in an overall enterprise site, like because you can get AEM. I'm authoring here, my applications are kind of my integration point is here, and here's how it all looks, and you almost have to recreate and kind of posit an infrastructure that could be implemented with Edge Delivery to even show them here's where it would fit into your website. Because in times that I've explained it, when I say, well, you can author stuff with documents, they're like, well, that's a neat toy, but where would it fit in my enterprise? And because that mechanics is difficult to communicate. So having a decent, like here, how would it plug into the rest of AEM? How does it plug into my enterprise asset management? How does it plug into my CDN and my rewrite rules? Where are my integration points and stuff like that? Because any site that runs AEM's got integrations. Yeah. Nothing's just standalone with just documents and front end. Like that it rarely happens. So where does it sit? I think that is something that I feel like we could all communicate better.
Any other voices?
I would say that initially when I saw it's called AEM, I was a bit concerned. So when I saw the aem-live website and I saw the Adobe Experience Manager logo in the top left corner, I'm like, okay, how on earth am I going to explain this to our engineers in the company, right? That was my first worry. And I still cannot explain to them why we call it AEM, because from, they look at it from technical perspective, they don't care about, how it looks from outside. So the tech guys are still, I think, confused. For me, for the clients, it's practically easier to sell and talk about it because it's called AEM. I usually try to just calm everyone down and say, listen, this is part of AEM solution. AEM solution just got a few more hands to it, and it's just becoming more powerful, and it has more options. It's still part of that greater ecosystem of Adobe Experience Manager. So for me, that's a good talking point. Without going into technical details, I can still talk about it, that it's just a different tool in the toolbox. It's part of the overall ecosystem. Yeah. And to be fair, I also try to explain what even Adobe guys were saying even last year, right? When we started questioning last year, what on earth are we going to do with all of this and who's going to win this battle, right? Because we have standard AEM authoring, we have universal editor, we have Franklin. Now what's going on? Is this an internal war now? And it's going to be in competition and someone will win it in 3 years' time? And the message was, no, they will probably all find their usages and they will stay there until further notice, right? Yep. And that's also a good message to say, right? None of them is going away. All of them are tools in the toolbox, and it's just a matter of coming back to that point, just finding the proper place for each of the tools. Yep. message that is part of the same ecosystem is usually conform. Like,
yeah. And
even though it's technically not exactly, or it's a bit fun.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out that there's also a lot of spiritual continuity between AEM and or AEM as a cloud service without edge delivery services and edge delivery services, right? It's being built by the same. It's being built by the same people. And Chad, you mentioned that you had a David Nuschler evangelization experience. I had I had one about 20 years ago that was about Sling coming up, right? So this is it's still the same people, it's still the same team, right? And to a certain degree, we are trying to make up for mistakes that we've made in the past. And obviously, right, we are not going to come up with exactly the same thing under different constraints using a different technology 15, 20 years later, right? But our commitment to creating great web experiences, to helping our customers have great websites, to giving the world fast and accessible websites. And bringing along a big ecosystem. I think that stands in 2024 as much as it stood in 2014, in 2004, and as it will be in 2034.
Yeah, definitely. Any other voices to customer experience? I think it's all at the end. When I look back at my sales career, I would love to sell it because it's more about value and outcome now. It's not about, I don't have to sell it technically because it's all about performance. It's fast. It's I think you mentioned it also on the panel, Lars, that you have your 3 points why edge delivery services is really a good product. And it's not about technique, it's not about architecture, and so it's all about value and outcome and why you should use it, and don't think about all the rest. There are a few points that are really important. I think that's the key for the future, and as you said, Roman, it is the future. I like that sentence. So maybe have 5 minutes left. Ina, yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes edge delivery looks a bit small when you look from the outside because you don't see so much of it. So most stuff is hidden in the background and done automatically. And for AEM, you have this huge system with this huge lot of you have all the buttons there, all the tools which you can see and which you can configure and which you can adjust. And for edge delivery, you have this one big black box which you cannot influence at all. But it has a massive power in it, and it can do a lot of the things for you, but you don't see it. You cannot touch it. You cannot change it. And I think this is maybe one of the big things which are making it different also to sell it. I don't know. It looks a bit. It's more a black box, and you cannot see it, and maybe then the impression is also sometimes it can do less because you see less.
Yeah, you're right. And I just found the slide I have stolen from Lars's panel, and I created this slide because I liked it. Because we have a recording, I think I have to put it here with the fastest website, authoring experience, and development speed. These are the 3 points we have to mention.
I mean, for me, if you have some complex ecosystem, you still have probably integrations you need to do. And, if you can't do them like, some people would, I don't support that, but, there are a lot of systems that are integrated through AEM, and that's what, all the Java developers have been busy with for years, like integrating everything with AEM. Now you cannot do it with edge delivery services. You need to do it a bit differently. Maybe you want to run a client-side integration, or maybe you want to put a CDN in front of it. There are still backends to all of those systems that you need to integrate, right? it's a mind shift, right? It's just a different picture to be drawn, and coming even back to the point of what are all of those Java developers going to do? They might be building just APIs in containers and deploy them to the cloud, right? It's not that scary, and actually it's often quicker to build and deploy, and that's what we've been doing with our guys, right? Even internally, they just change the disciplines a bit. They are still building backends, they are still writing their tests, they're doing awful lot of similar things, but maybe somewhere else. And the same goes with the client, right? It's same stuff done in a few different places, and the picture has to be drawn a bit differently.
To me, it kind of feels like you're not. Well, when I started out, it kind of felt like, well, this is prototyping, right? I'm putting things in an Excel spreadsheet and putting this over here. But later, we're going to put that in a real database or something, right? But, it gets some. It's some getting used to, I'd say, in the beginning.
It looks.
Thank you.
This is what I said. It looks small, but it can do much more than prototyping. Trust me.
Oh yeah, you and I know that. That's how. Yeah, it might feel to somebody. Like, going backwards is supposed to.
Great. Okay, we have a few minutes left. Normally, Lars is asking me the question, what's happening in the future and what's going on. Now I turn it around. I will not ask Lars first. I will ask Roman, because Roman, maybe you can say what is happening on the adaptTo side now in the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, 12 to 24 months. We don't have to go that far. I think the next milestone will be next Tuesday when the recordings will be released on our YouTube channel. So Tuesday, everything should be ready. So for all of the ones who didn't have the chance to join, now we can watch everything, or we can rewatch it. I think that's the next bigger milestone. And then, adaptTo 2025, internally approved. Will happen in fall. Exact date still to be clarified, but we will be back in Berlin for another version.
Super. Great, cool. Perfect. Thank you. And if you want to, so first, if you want to listen to Lars again on a panel, you can look at the recording, or now I can make the bridge to next week. You can go to Adobe Developers Live, and Lars will also be there doing a speech. Maybe Lars, you can say what you're doing.
So I was about to say, don't spend all of your screen time next Tuesday on rewatching adaptTo videos. You still have to save a couple of hours for screen time for our Adobe Developer Live conference. And I'm happy to report that the deadline for the slides was last night. And I managed to submit my slides even a couple hours early. So I'm going to talk about edge delivery services, a couple of things that we've learned. You've seen and heard me talk about this a lot. I'm planning to give it a slightly new twist. So I hope to see you there. Or at least I hope that you will tune into the live stream.
Yeah, and all there will also be a recording also from Dev Live, so this will also be accessible. And we will have on the 21st of November, we will do with a few folks from Dev Live. We'll do a Discord session looking back, like we did now for adaptTo. We will do it for Dev Live.
Yeah,
and then I think we will have one more session definitely in December about introducing search utility for edge delivery services, and then it goes fast into Christmas, and there we have to look who is around and who is not around.
Yeah. Okay.
So from that point of view, Lars.
Yeah, I wanted to say a big thank you to Roman for the organization of adaptTo, right? I think it's a fantastic conference. The fact that this is coming out of the community, right, and that it's not an Adobe vendor event, right, where it's just Adobe people pushing Adobe's agenda, is a really great thing. I'm saying that as an Adobe employee, and I especially applaud your willingness and audacity in taking the community along for this exciting ride from AEM as a Java application to AEM with cloud services and edge delivery. So thanks, Roman. Thanks to the entire adaptTo team. And I'm looking forward to many more adaptTo conferences.